Yeah.
Okay, so let's start off. So
the last time we did this was a year ago.
So last time we did this was a year ago.
That's crazy. And that was with Kim Herden, and we were talking about the FT, announcing FT.
PT.
Or PT in Toronto. Yeah.
And so now we have another announcement.
It's big.
Which is kind of already on the website.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, it's nice to actually.
So why don't you, I always get the announcements. So why don't you say.
Brought to you by.
What are we doing? What are we doing?
Well, very excitingly, if that's an adverb, in the fall, we will be starting full-time program in Toronto, online.
Do tell more.
Yes.
So online. Okay.
Online, and it starts in September, and it's with our Toronto affiliate with Kim Herden.
Okay.
And so it's a whole new offering, and it's East Coast. It'll be, instead of being in the morning East Coast time, it'll be in the afternoon.
12 o'clock start time.
12 o'clock start time. So if you're in Pacific, Eastern, you can, wherever you are, you can kind of tune in. And it's exciting because it'll have a Toronto flavor. It'll have, it's our curriculum, but it'll have a Toronto-based flavor with Toronto instructors and, a view on the business that's, according to Toronto culture.
From the Toronto perspective.
So from the Toronto perspective.
Get a sense of what the Toronto feel is like, because like prelay doesn't exist there the way it is here.
Yeah.
They don't do
that's right.
ensemble records for animation there.
Right.
Whereas here, 8 people in a room, this is pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
There, it's all singular record like that. And so things like that will be different. And it's definitely a proud moment for us because we expanded there for PT with Kim. And then we were like, okay, we need to do FT. And so that starts September 26th.
My birthday.
2022 on your birthday. And you'll be there.
We organized it that way. I appreciate that.
You'll be there in Toronto to
officiate it.
There to have some cake and teach a class.
Yeah. Almost.
But so no, it's really exciting. I mean, to think that, I don't know. We've had this space for 6 years. We talked about that. And then, it was all part-time. Then we started full-time. We were excited about announcing full-time. And it was PT Toronto. Now it's FT Toronto and Toronto, sort of going to stop there. But yeah, having Kim on board there is amazing. She's the biggest thing in the business there, whether casting or voice direction, right? So,
and I think her understanding the business will give the program that kind of flavor, because it's certainly in the Business of Voiceover, which is one of the classes we offer. That's a huge component of what we teach.
Yeah,
getting people set up in their career, and that's a huge step.
So we have a couple of things some topics we also want to cover today. So I'm gonna start with one for me. So obviously I want your input on this because this is something that you and I've been in the business a long time. It's like I'm 27 years. You're probably very close to that. And I think that the more people we teach, or the more panels we're on, or conferences we go to, or I feel like students that are new to the business or just wanting to get into the business, or I've been in 1 to 2 years. What's the secret of the success in the business? Like, what's the secret?
Everybody always asks that.
How do you do it? And it's like, it's truly, and I was thinking about this the other day. It's like anything else you're going to do. If you're going to become a lawyer, there's no secret to becoming a lawyer. You've got to learn the skill, learn the information, go to school. There's a lot of things you have to download. If you're going to become a doctor, if you're going to become a plumber, this is no different. It just happens to be in a performance avenue where you have to work very hard. And every single person that you and I know that's done really well in voiceover has worked really hard to get to where they are on a constant basis. That is the secret.
That's the secret. I was going to say, that's the secret to understanding
it. That you have to stay in the game and you never stop. It's like Dave Chappelle talked about it in stand-up comedians.
Yeah.
Once you start, never stop. Never stop. Like, keep going. And
every day,
people want to, they feel like there's this magical component to it. And the magical components are just stay in it, get to know yourself, because we've talked about that, about like digging deep into who I am as a person and what's my baggage, who am I as an expressive person, what makes me unique, and all of that stuff, so I can, do my authentic reads and then do my character reads and
Mhm.
get out of my own way and like all of that stuff, which is so helpful.
Mhm.
And I just feel like people are stuck on thinking that there's some, if I just get this pill and swallow that, I'm Neo and then I'm in the Matrix, a voice like, or
Right.
and it just doesn't exist.
No, because well, it doesn't exist. You're right. The secret is the effort that it takes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there isn't, listen, there's not one answer to multiple problems. And having a voiceover career, not multiple problems, but multiple issues that you have to handle. And so maybe finding the secret, it's finding the secret in different areas. There's not one, there's many. So there's many secrets.
There's technique and information that can tweak changes and pivot and stuff like that. But in terms of, it's just good old fashioned elbow grease and effort and working hard. And what is wrong with that?
Yeah.
Like, why are we not okay with like just working really hard at something to be great at it? Think of all the guys that we know or gals that we know, like France Paris or David Kay or Eric Bauza, or people that have really come from and have extraordinary careers, and our careers. How do we get to the point where we're doing what we're doing? We still work really hard. Right.
I think people want that answer because they see the effect of success and not the cause. Constantly, right? Media is bombarding us with effective. Oh, look at this success story, but you don't see what went into that
result. But they don't see all the hustle.
And you've got to dig deep and find out. And I would say maybe nuanced view on secret. Your own secret would be your interpretation. Like you learned something about the business. The question is, how do you apply it to yourself? It's not just like if you learn a tool in voiceover, how do you make it work for you? That's the key.
Yes.
It's not just applying it like a blanket tool, so to speak,
Yeah. Like specific coaching or whatever, or yeah. That's really good. Yeah. Cause I want people to be okay with the hustle. Cause that's what makes it really exciting when you get success and you get that booking or that movie or that TV series or that big campaign, it happens and you're filled with joy because you crossed this journey of hard work. And there's like a little bit of luck factor and whatever else in it when you get that big job. And like when Vincent Tong got that Disney movie that I was supposed to be in, it's another story. There's an NDA. But anyways, I remember him saying, he's like, look, Mom, I'm on the Grauman's, like the billboard above the Grauman's theater in LA.
That's
like,
amazing.
It was for the Disney, one of the Disney movies that came out. And Vincent's been doing really well for a long time, but he was also very touched and moved by the fact that he had achieved that.
Right.
Like, look, Ma, look what I'm doing,
Yeah.
And so I don't think it ever gets old. And so it is worth the hard work and I really like what you said about applying the technique and the knowledge and the super hyper, important knowledge to yourself specifically so that you can then apply that and go after it. And
another thing I think that's really important, the secret of your dream and the secret of why you want to do something. Intention is everything. It's 9/10 of the law. So you have to have that amazing desire to express yourself and tell story. You can't just be wandering in like just a conversational walk through it. You've got to have that hunger and know where that comes from and have that dream that fuels you. And that's easy to lose touch with if even when you're in the middle of your career, but certainly when you're beginning, that's got to be so strong.
You're getting a lot of, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But I think you have to choose something that you love to do, almost not for money in a way. Like
money's the effect.
I still like doing voiceover on a Sunday, even though it's kind of a pain because I have children and stuff. But you know what I mean? Like I still kind of like, once I get in there, I'm like, this is still fun. I still do love it.
Yeah.
Like sure, there's some stuff that's more exciting than others, but I still love doing voices when I read my children's books to them at night.
Right.
Being like just in a character and that's just kind of it is picking the right dream too.
Yeah. And and the bigger metaphor about story is that you're constantly telling many stories in all these genres of voiceover, but ultimately you're telling your story. It's your expression of who you are through all that. And that
perception.
Yeah.
And then you take a third dream and you plug that in, and that's also connected. And then Leonardo DiCaprio comes in, and he's the cast.
He always shows up
for and then he's Batman, and then
yeah,
that's awesome. Yeah, no, I think that's so. Yeah, please, consider the effort worth it, and just get on that journey, and go after it and see what happens.
Yeah.
Because you won't be disappointed, even just getting one job. My brother got his first job. He called me in tears. Like he was crying. Mike, I got the mean machines. Crying on the phone. I can't control myself.
But isn't that beautiful?
It was amazing.
A grown man crying.
And it was seriously like it made me cry. Because I was just like, you could hear the little kid in him achieving a dream.
Yeah.
Like
that's it. That's what it is, right?
He was out of one career and into another. And he's going to bug me for doing that impression of him. But too bad, Richie.
Yeah, so I think one thing that has come up a lot is like, how do you survive the business of voiceover in a pandemic, post-pandemic world? And I think there's one element that's so strong as a general element, which is mental health. It's something that's kind of almost become a meme in a bad way, but in a good way. Well, like because people constantly talk about mental health as a thing to talk about rather than really being specific about how it affects artists. And I just, I feel it's so bandied about that people get bored. When a topic's discussed so much, people turn off.
Yeah.
It's almost like when you're you're doing commercials, it's like, we're in this together. After a while, you couldn't say that anymore and mean it because you've said it 100 times. But I think the reality of it is we are in this together, and the mental health component is something to take seriously, even if you don't think you're being affected. Like, I consider myself pretty resilient, and I don't find, I wouldn't describe myself as a depressed person at all. But I mean, what's interesting is that the pandemic did reveal for me, because I'm a people person, I'm gregarious, and I thrive off people's energy.
Yeah.
Being alone so much and being in my booth so much,
that's hard.
It affected my read. It affected how I related to my audience.
Right.
And it diminished me. And it made me smaller than I usually am.
You lost a couple of inches, actually.
Now I know.
You're like 5.
Now I'm 5'7". Used to be 5'10". This is getting older. You feel smaller, and I think that it's not something to take lightly. And what it requires, I think, of everyone is to take a step back, either in a vacation that you take, or in a therapy session, or you just to get some perspective on where you are and what makes you happy. And maybe you need a rekindling of that somehow.
Yeah. That's really important. I'm a huge proponent of mental health, and I do believe that the stigma on doing something about it is lessening, right? I mean, people are not ashamed to admit they've been in therapy.
Right.
I've been in therapy.
Goodness.
You've taken.
Yeah.
I have a regular guy that I go see, or on Zoom at least, but I check in and just sort of, because it's not easy to be human. I mean, it's just not. Like, you're trying to do all these things in this short amount of time. You're like, and now I'm a dad and a husband and a friend and a career, and I'm trying to acquire things in my life and travel and do, like, you're trying to do things and expand. Like, it's hard. It's
hard.
Not easy to be human. And
you're bombarded with negative media all the time.
Yeah, like there's all this stuff coming at you. Like so you kind of have to know how to block that. And so I totally agree. I feel like you do have to protect your balance, and I think there's contributing factors a little bit to. I think as I have a coach also that I work with, and he talked about that we're the most distracted slice of humanity that's ever existed, because we have so much going on around us. We have social media and TVs and phones and people and that, and just so much coming at us at once. And we're trying to do so much and multitask so much at once that we're not able to, like, you know, here you and I
know, right?
having a face-to-face. We don't do that much anymore. It's not like, you know, you have dinner with people that are you see them on their phones or stuff like that. Or like couples, and you're like, what are you doing?
I know.
This is your time to connect. Yeah. You know, so I think the connection point, like you brought up, you're feeling like I'm spending so much time alone. And I felt that too. I think if we can, you know, getting together in groups or seeing friends and family and sure, have a therapy session. Nothing wrong with going into therapy and you know, dealing with whatever baggage you have in life. It's not easy to be human. I think we all have stuff that we have to deal with, and that's completely normal. And, you know, have fun. You know, have fun. Have fun. Remember to have fun in your life. People like, you know, we get caught up and it's like, go out to a hockey game or whatever. It doesn't have to be NHL. Go to see whatever whatever the next level down is, AAA baseball. Yeah. I don't get, just get and try to do those things and remember that that's important too. You know, because the less precious you are with your read, you know, the looser, because you should feel like you're in the fun zone when you're performing. Yeah, because because you're the solution to somebody's problem. But I just mean in anything. Like I did a thing last week and I was like, I'm only gonna be in the fun zone when I open my mouth. I'm done. Oh, I see. I'm done with this whole like, I'm not sure what to say, you know, and not that I'm not sure what to say, but I was just like, I'm gonna get the take. I'm just gonna be my fun self, and it's just so much more rewarding and just better of an experience. And we all, any person that's getting into voiceover or is in it, can operate from the fun zone. Yeah, you can. Yeah, like you can. You don't need to be in the struggling sort of, you know, trying to get the read sludge zone. Yeah, like I'm talking about the free flowing, like easy zone that's like easy to be in, and you know. Again, it's not easy to juggle all the things that we have in life. A lot of people are, you know, some people are, they have their 9-to-5 job, and then they're also trying to get into voiceover. Yeah. You know, from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. Or people like Marshall, who's like, oh, I actually have to take care of my child during the day, and I try and do all my work between 7 and 11 at night. Right. That's not an easy thing to do. No, I know. Or people that are working during the day and then training at night. Or people doing the full-time program that's like a full day of training and then they're working at night. This is not easy. No. Like, and you have to accept that limitation, but yet move to go beyond it. Yeah. So I think the more you acknowledge that, you know, it's okay for, you know, it's okay that life can be hard, you know, and to just, and maybe take a step back and like you realize with you, like, you know, you're like, man, I'm spending a lot of time in the booth or in my office and I'm not like really around a lot of people. And what's that doing to me? Yeah. And having that self-awareness to kind of go, wait a second, let me repivot my energy and self-awareness. And, you know, all of that's super key. And you can lose that sense of where you are if you're coping constantly. Like I'm a great coper. And so I'll be coping through something, not realizing how it's affecting me because you're surviving rather than thriving. Right. And that's what you want to do as an artist and a voiceover person like is thrive. The shields up. You're kind of blocking stuff, but it takes effort to block rather than like, no. Yeah. So for me, one of the other things I wanted to talk about was, because I think both of us are really paying attention to, you know, our part-time grads, our full-time grads, and their journey of finishing studying with us, or they come back and study with us when they're done, or whatever it is. Yeah. And what we're hearing is that people feel stopped by these walls that come to them in their existence, in their voiceover journey. These walls that come before them, because they're like, I don't know what to do about that. And some of them I've noticed are getting defeated by these walls. And the reality is that, you know, the walls that are presented to us are either made of different material. Some are made of paper. Some are made of drywall that you can punch through. Paper, you can just like one finger through and rip it, and it's easy to get through. Some are made of drywall. It's a bit of a harder punch. Some are made of concrete, and you need like a drill, or you have to find another way to get around it. Because I feel like my whole thing about being a performer is that you have to be pragmatic. In your pragmatism, you have to bring pragmatism into your life.
Yeah.
Because it's not the everyday journey to be a performer. You're just going to get walls. You and I still have walls.
Oh yeah,
I mean, right now,
all the time.
Still have walls. Still breaking down walls. 27 years in.
Yeah.
And now they're big walls, and we've gone through like hundreds and hundreds of walls. But we've learned to get around them or climb them. So you have to learn. Okay, wait, this wall I've got to climb. Oh, it's pretty high though. All right, well, I'm going to get in shape. And I'm gonna get my climbing materials and my hooks and my proper shoes, and I'm gonna like climb this thing. Okay, climb that wall. Done. It was really hard, but I did it. Oh wait, this one I can actually. Someone told me some info. I can actually go around this wall. I don't need to climb it, and it's made of concrete. Amazing. Oh, this one I do need to get the drill out and drill through this. Yeah. Okay, well it's gonna take 4 months. Got to drill through because I can't move my career forward unless I get through this wall. Right. And so it's what I'm saying is accepting the walls into your life, but using pragmatism to get through them or over them or around them. And that's what I feel like being an artist is. It's being a warrior of moving forward because that's all you have. You have to move forward while you're expanding your skill of being an artist and a performer. Like, and our thing is voiceover. So we keep getting better at voiceover and expressing ourselves more cleanly and more presently. While we're like, oh, there's a wall. Got it. Okay, breaking through. And you just kind of have to accept it. And every single performer that you and I could name right now, we could name 10 people each who have extraordinary careers. They've all had hundreds and hundreds of walls. Yeah.
And let me tell you, there's a very big wall that a lot of them really had. There's a very big wall because, I wanted to build a very big wall and it was, okay, that's
just done.
And, the reality is that they've all had those walls and I just feel like it's part of the game. Again, it's getting through those walls and then you get through and you're like, won't ever see that wall again because I broke it down. I'm beyond it now. So now it's the next level.
It may reform in a different way. So you got to be careful of that. I mean, you just have to be able to identify what the wall is and know how to tackle it. I'll give you an example in my own life. You get to a point where you feel burnt out. You feel like overwhelmed, and I feel like in a way like I've kind of hit. That's kind of my wall right now. Yeah. And what does it take? So in my mind, I'm going over this, and I'm like, wait, is it just a vacation that I need? Is it a structural change about how I live my life? How am I spending my time? Like there's lots of ways to get over that wall. And maybe you just got to try all the potential solutions. Yeah. Because maybe it is just a vacation. Yeah. But maybe it's not. Maybe I'll come back from my break and it won't be where I need it to be. I'll have to make other and maybe more radical decisions. But you've got, whatever you do, you have to do whatever will serve getting over the wall.
And be honest about what the wall is. Like you're like, I'm burnt out. That's a wall for me. And I'm finding it difficult. So now I'm going to either climb it, get around it, or go through it. And then I'll see what I'll learn from that. And hopefully I won't have that wall again or whatever. Yeah. I mean, in some ways it's like a good problem to have. It means you're a busy guy. So that's kind of that's the reframing.
That's the reframing of it.
Side of it. But it's also like you can't, you're in this business for another 20 years. So you got a lot of time to, get a lot of great things done, and you don't want to be burnt out, but because that's a whole other thing. But I mean, my example would probably be promo, that, the amount of promo auditions that I was doing for LA, for New York, even in Canada, for like the voice of networks and stuff. And I was just like, man, I'm really just not getting through to this. And then, this is so funny too. And I don't know, I might've told the story, but I went away. It was on vacation and I had to do a promo audition, and I ended up doing it on my phone in the bathroom. I was like,
you're in a hotel. I love those.
I was just in a VRBO.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like a
Towel over your head.
And I was like, I'm going to do it. And I did the thing. And I was like, yeah, I think that's pretty good. Actually, it kind of works. And like, and so I sent it off. And then they're like, yeah, you booked that. I was like, what? That's crazy. And I listened back to the audition. I was like, oh yeah, it kind of had all the elements. And so just, in my mind, I'm like, no, it has to be in the studio sound and on the 416.
Right.
And ended up, but all they wanted to hear was the vibe. And then of course, you play the finished product and it's like, it's for the HBO Max control thing.
Yeah.
Ended up getting the whole season of that. And then, that turned into other shows or whatever. And so I don't know. I think it's just, there are certain walls that you have to be willing to like, I'm going to keep hammering this wall. This is going to be, I have to hit this wall like 100 times.
What do you think? What do you think got you over that wall? Like, what was it that changed when you did the thing in the hotel? Was it a different kind of read or was it?
I don't know. I think I was in the playful mode. Actually, I think I was really in the fun zone because I was on vacation. So I was just kind of like, so I just was super loose and I was like, and I just sort of did this thing and it was sort of a Twilight Zone kind of takeoff and I kind of, that's not quite where it landed for the thing, but that's what they were asking for. And then, because I kind of did this sort of, it was sort of trailery what ended up going on air or whatever. And, but I think it was the fun zone. I think I was just playful and I was just like, and I was not attached to anything but that and just kind of, I was honoring the narrative of the piece for sure, because you have to do that.
Sure, yeah.
I'm going to be playful, and that's number one. Who cares about anything else?
Yeah, people try to be playful. I found myself doing that.
Yeah,
I'm going to get in a playful zone. Yeah, and then you're like struggling.
Yeah. You have to really get into it and like. So yeah, it's just kind of so yeah. I think we all have to accept that there will be walls, and because there's too much at stake and there's too much success out there. They don't just hand these things out. It's just, I'm sorry, but the business is like 50 years old. The voiceover business is 50 years old, and they're not going to just hand out, the voice of Lexus and the voice of, Iron Man or like on a Disney series, or they're not handing that stuff out just because you took a class and they're like, no, you gotta bang against the wall. Like that's a wall. Like get ready. Climb the wall, learn how to or get around it, and I think that's okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Walls exist in every other industry. Why would they exist here? And let's not get emotional about it. Let's just accept that they exist. And
find, use all the tools we talked about. The dream will help you get the dream is part of it too.
Yeah, just keep at it.
One thing I wanted to bring up is, and it's actually come up in my own work, so it's it's personal as well, is prep. Prepping your audition. You get to a place in your career, like I'm sure you have, where you're like, I think I know what I'm doing. And you step into the booth and you kind of like, I'll do that voice that I do on this read and it'll be fine. But the problem is that maybe in another world that used to be okay, but what's missing is the specificity. And, in recent advice I've gotten is that, all the knowledge that I have as an actor and my willingness to go and prep sides in a on-camera or a theater world you have to have that same respect for a voiceover situation. Even if you don't do on camera and voiceover, whatever you do does need to have the respect of the work. So you do need the specificity.
Yes.
Who's telling the story to whom and all that, and I think if you try to wing stuff sometimes, it's a fine line because we just talked about having fun. You got to be in the fun zone.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be in your head. But at the same time, maybe do the head stuff before and then flip into the fun zone because you've done the work. But if you don't do the work, the fun zone's random. The fun zone's too generalized. And I'll give you an example. I had an audition for something that I discovered in coaching that I really didn't connect with. I kind of dismissed. And it was in my read because I was like, oh, this isn't really me, but I'll do it anyway. I'll do the audition anyway. Right. And I didn't prep it because I wasn't channeling who the audience might be. And I was like, so I overdid it. I pushed it. I played the idea of the voice, you know, in my read, rather than just connecting to it authentically and imagining quite specifically who I was talking to at what point. It was for like this promo thing, and I just didn't do the work.
Yeah.
And it was because of a limiting belief that I had. I was like, oh, I just doesn't feel like me. And the reality is, you're just channeling you into the medium. And the only way you can do that effectively is prep your audition specifically in terms of your audience and how you're going to tell that story and who it's going to be to.
What about on things though? Because I don't connect to everything that I do. I mean, there's
I agree, and
I don't care about that product or that show that I'm promoting, or that character, or that animated character, or that narration series.
I agree.
Right? There's stuff where I'm like, I don't care.
Okay, great. So I'm glad you brought that up.
But I'm just saying.
Go ahead,
so I think for me, I know there's substitution. There's some tools around that
for sure.
But there's I mean, and I totally get what you're saying. I feel like there's certain times where I'm like, I bow out. Or I go, I'm not gonna do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I just go, because I don't know. Are we supposed to audition for every single thing?
Like you don't
completely
right. Yeah.
Agree with what you're saying, but I'm just saying, are we supposed to audition for everything?
No,
like
for sure.
Like a movie actor, think about an A-list film actor. They only do the movies that they are right for, and they accept the scripts. They go, yeah, that's a good script for me. I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I know. But when you choose to audition, I guess then you got to commit.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you brought up this thing about like, oh, sometimes I don't do all that detailed prep, and I just kind of, because there is a place for that. So there is a caveat to that. And Kim actually brought it up. It was great. She brought up this thing. She's like, I don't always agree that actors have to put all this prep into their read.
Yeah.
She's like, certainly when it comes to retail stuff, it's not, you don't have to do all the detailed work. This is discount stuff. But here's the thing I would nuance is you at least have to have a connected tone. So if you're not connecting in substance and content, which is what we were talking about in the whole sort of high-end read stuff.
Yeah.
In the retail read, you at least have to have a relationship with your audience, and you have to have a connected tone.
Totally.
Right?
Totally.
And so that's the fine line that I think
I was just speaking for maybe it's from animation too. Like there's certain animation stuff where I'm like, I'll do like 10 takes. And I'll be like, my second take was way better because I was fresh. And I totally, and I was playful, and I discovered something in there that was kind of cool. And I go, yeah, that's the thing. And I could turn, there's enough flesh there for me to like dive. If that voice gets hired for the show, I can do that. There's enough in there that I can turn that into 26 episodes.
Yeah.
I can dig into that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
So it's tricky. It's like, I think you definitely have to be in a confident place and relate to your audience and all that. It's tricky though. I think if you're just kind of servicing it without being in any kind of inspirational or fun zone or informed zone, why are you doing it? I think we can all agree on that.
Yeah, I agree.
Do you know what I mean?
I know.
If you haven't done your research, or you're not trying to relate in a tonal way, or like, well, what's the show about? Is it for 4 to 8 year olds, or like, okay, who's like, there's some kind of sense of it, then why are you doing it? Like, when have you ever gotten a job where you're like kind of uninspired?
Very rarely.
Right?
Yeah. And because it feels like homework. And I think if the spot feels like homework to you, whether it's an animation audition or a commercial or whatever it is, if it starts to feel like homework, that's the time to that's the time to rejig
that's
it.
Not what it was when we first got into it. We were we were very excited about that audition. It was like, oh wow, I get to do this audition. This is, and of course we audition a lot, so we have a different relationship to auditioning and all that now, because we're sort of like, the funnel can be almost as full as we want it to be. Yeah. And that's a different relationship to maybe someone who's starting. So it's kind of remembering that, and I'm sure maybe people that are starting out, there's certain auditions where they're like, I'm not connecting to this. And I don't know, maybe that's okay. You know, maybe it's, if you can find your connection zone to it, then do that. Then find the connection. But if you're like, no, I don't want to, like, I've emailed my agent to go, no, not on this one. There's other people that can do this better.
For
than
sure.
me.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, me
I'm
too.
just not going to be in the zone for it. And, okay.
It's also giving space between auditions. Like when I started auditioning in New York, like you'd have to go to the studio. So yeah, maybe I'd have 4 auditions in a day.
Yeah.
But I have to go to each place.
Yeah.
And it was a different place with a different casting director with a different and so it was a different experience.
It's like a reset.
Oh,
You're on the
yeah.
subway.
That's
you're
what it is.
walking, and you get a coffee, and then you're like,
Yeah.
oh, who's this guy or who's this girl?
I know.
Yeah.
And every audition was different. And and it's harder to do that when the setting is exactly the same and there's nobody that's switching that for you. You got to auto switch, and yeah.
So this kind of leads us nicely into the scene now. So sort of the Vancouver voiceover scene, or even the global kind of scene. I mean, post pandemic, I know we're sort of like crawling out of the pandemic on our hands and knees. I don't know if we're fully out of it.
Yeah.
But that definitely has changed for sure. Like the amount of auditions that we do in studio is very little, right? It's mostly like, yep, send the MP3 to the local agent in Vancouver, and they forward it off to the local studio or whoever's, production company, or if it's animation or whatever it is. And that's what I would say that's mostly the drill now, rather than what it used to be, where Noel and I would like cross paths, like we see each other at Coco, then we see each other at DGRP, and then at Wave, or like it'd be sort of like, oh, is that? Yeah. That's definitely changed. So I don't know when that's coming back, and I think that's probably true in Toronto and LA and New York. It's
100%.
People are sending it in, and so that's a definite change, and so. It's a little bit sad because there's an energy about going to an audition.
Yeah,
there's sort of like a vibe. There, you feed off seeing your friends there, or people that you know really well, or maybe you see someone that you haven't seen in a while. It's like, oh hey, and there's sort of energy there, and then you kind of bring that into the audition, and you get to work with like a casting director, or voice director,
get directed,
directs you in real time, and. Oh, do it like that? Sure, I can make that change.
Yeah.
Wish I would have known that during the MP3. Because it changes the whole complete. It's like you're in the dark, So that's the one thing that I think most notably for me that's changed. I mean, I feel like the work is back. I feel like commercially, the budgets are increasing for ads, and like they're back. I feel like it's kind of back, and animation feels like it's back. Kind of, there's more shows coming up, and I hope that's true, and I believe that to be true in other markets in Toronto, LA, New York. So that's the good news. I think that the economy is the economy of voiceover is sort of back to where it was, because it did slow down a bit
for sure. 100%. Yeah.
So. Yeah, those are the two sort of starting points for me.
I think I'm just imagining somebody listening to this who's starting out and they're struggling with that whole notion of like not being able to get feedback. They're in their booth, they're in the beginning stage of their career, and they're trying to get feedback on auditions. What do I do? That would be a question I would ask.
Right.
And I think one of the answers we found running a full-time program, because we've had students who spend so much time with one another, they form groups, they form friendships, and after they graduate, they meet as a group.
Yes.
And it's something that I kind of learned more technically in LA by joining the Actors Network in LA, and being in an actors community.
Yeah.
Where you get feedback, and you're getting, so they're having feedback from your peers even is valuable. And having a community where you're talking. And I think a lot of our graduates are actually really proficient at that now.
Yeah.
I mean, they ask the questions, they ask questions, they talk to one another, they support one another.
Yeah.
In this kind of solitary performing art, you need that.
You could have audition Zoom workout groups.
For sure.
Where you connect. And, I know that there's some OTM Zoom workout groups that have already happened. But yeah, I mean, for sure, get that feedback from somebody you've been in class with, who can be like, hey, maybe if you tried it like this, and some stuff that you just don't see sometimes when you're, even for us. I mean, that's why we get professionally directed on stuff that directors are like, no, actually I see it like this, or, you know, and yeah, connect with those people and zoom in. I mean, that's something that it's funny, you know, that's something that, you know, even 2 years ago, it wasn't that popular, but it probably would have been a really great idea.
Yeah.
Like in 2018 or 19,
I know. Nobody
you know,
talked
like,
about that back then.
People weren't really doing that, but it would have been kind of cool to like, hey, do you want to meet on like Zoom and do like a sort of a feedback sort of audition thing?
Or meet at a cafe and wow everyone around you.
Meet at a cafe or whatever, or FaceTime or whatever, and kind of get that. That's interesting, isn't it? Yeah.
Work on your connect. If anything, it's not even like getting the audition right. You know, it's about working on your connectivity, like practicing with other people. You get to see how they respond to you, and that's interesting.
Yeah, and you get inspired by their direction, or I always, whenever I get directed, I'm just like, oh yeah, like,
I
it just
know.
gives me that like, oh that's cool, and I feel
know,
like
yeah.
it's awesome fuel to.
I agree.
Because I you know I always feel like I'm bringing something sizable to the table. I've done my research on what, especially if I'm doing the job. I'm like, you know, ready to go. But if they're like, yeah, what about this sort of subtle situation or this kind of thing, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, I mean, if you are starting out, you can connect in groups and I don't know what else. I mean, how else has Vancouver or the globe changed? I mean, you know, Fiverr.
Yeah.
Fiverr has become a massive outlet for, and it's clearly in the lead of like most voiceover bookings,
Pay-to-play
and
sites,
money being spent for Pay-to-play and
non-union
just
folks
that
starting
whole
out.
situation. I know that there's sort of people are looking at Fiverr like, well, I'm not gonna go in and do like a $15 job or whatever, and yeah, maybe it starts there because you've got to get into the algorithm and there's a whole sort of system the way Fiverr works, but you don't stay there. It's not like people that started 2 years ago on Fiverr that for $15 a job are still doing that. They're doing $10K a month, right? Or whatever. Like that's an actual, you know, example of someone we know. So it's, you know, I know that people they get into like, I don't want to contribute to the race to the bottom. I don't want to, you know, and the problem is that, you know, we all have to give everyone a chance at a career. You know, and so there has to be sort of these levels of like, you know, not everybody's going to, you know, get an agent right away and get on a series or be the voice of Honda. Yeah. It's not going to happen right away for everyone.
Yeah.
And so how do you chip away and improve your workflow? Well, you can do it on some of these platforms like voices.com or Voice123. And I think some people like to kind of get down on them a little bit, but they are providing a chance for people to work. You can't dispute that, and they're not going anywhere ever. Yeah. They're never going to go away. Like it's just right. They're just not. So
the industry has definitely changed that direction, and the whole online experience speaks to that naturally.
If I was an agent and someone came to me and said, "Yeah, so I've done 600 jobs." Oh, great. Wow. Oh, that's great. So you've got your professional workflow, you got your sound down, your performance, your delivery, your turnaround time, like everything's ready to go. If I'm an agent, why am I going to go, what? You were on Fiverr. Why would I care?
Right. And that is interesting.
Aren't I going to say, oh, good, you're ready to go. Now I can plug you into an even higher end career now.
Yeah.
Now
I mean,
you're ready to be
the fact that you've booked on a pay-to-play site it gives you a certain pedigree and
it's work.
Work.
It's work, you know, and so I feel like I want people to remove the judgment from these pay-to-play sites and see it as a means to an end. Of course, people are going to want to land on the high-end career where you're only doing commercial campaigns, animated series, narration series, video games, high-end corporate. Of course, that's where we all want to be. But I'm saying if someone needs to work their way up to that, okay, we'll give them a chance.
For sure.
Come on. These people are wanting to work hard and do audiobooks and like whatever it is to climb their way up to that upper echelon high-end career where you're getting paid a decent amount of money for every job you do, you know, and I don't think that's a bad thing. And, you know,
I think one of the, and if people don't know this already, one of the great online resources that kind of speaks to the concern about rates is the GVAA, right? So I always direct people that way, because if you're trying to negotiate something, at least the GVAA is trying to bring in relatively close to union rates.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Because I understand the other perspective where agents are concerned about the work completely going, non-union and out the door, and then the relation, all the quality of the work stuff. I can appreciate that perspective to a certain degree, because you don't want it all being,
well, can I say something?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Like I that would have to mean that there's an agreement amongst the entire population of everyone to agree that it's all moving to online. And that's also never going to happen.
Yeah, for sure.
That's
right.
never going to happen.
Yeah.
Because there are people, the infrastructure has been built and has existed for so long between ad agencies and agents and production companies, and that machine is built and here to stay forever.
Yeah.
So yeah, some jobs might go to voices.com, but you know what? They also come back.
Right.
They go there and they're like, let's go back.
Yeah.
Like,
for sure.
So it's sort of, so I think organically the ecosystem will find itself, and it will sort of like, it will always sort of like organically land on its feet the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Maybe the market determines that.
Well, it's supply and demand. I mean, that's how, it's just like you're selling a house. I'm selling my house for $500. No one wants to pay $500 for my house. All right, I guess I got to sell it for $400. Oh, 16 buyers. It is the supply and the demand that is creating the ecosystem for our business. And rather than like unloading judgment on the all of the different levels that make it up, which, this lower level is fiber and voices and voice 123, just be like, okay, that's part of the ecosystem. That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's not bad. It's just part of it.
Yeah.
It's part of what's been created. But, the ad agencies and the agents and, that's not going anywhere. There's too many people that want that to stay and that have houses and they're invested in that career. And
there's a certain level of excellence to be expected there.
Exactly.
And there's, that's just how,
like there's a protocol to that machine that people love working in. There's something really, really nice about working in that side of it too. Like, and, we all love that side of it too. So, let's let the ecosystem land on its feet and allow everyone to
have a
where
place.
they want to be in that place.
Right.
Some people want to stay in the fiber and they don't want high-end careers. Okay. Let them stay there.
Mm-hmm.
Some people want to stay in voices.com and have an agent. They can do both things. Great. Do that. Some people only want agents. Great. That's those people.
And it's
all the pools sort of right themselves.
And it's tough to put the onus on the performer to change the industry, right? It's like,
or blame them for trying to get work.
I know
How can you blame someone for working?
They just want to get work.
They just want to work. How can you get upset with someone for trying to work?
Yeah.
That's what I've never understood. I don't understand that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like let everybody land on their feet in the ecosystem and everybody just keep doing what they do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's even a pro-union or anti-union argument. I just think it's like, you gotta find your place in the industry. So
find your place and go after it. So yeah, I mean, if there's any questions on that for yourself, I would just first and foremost try to get work first.
Yeah.
That's create volume and go after the volume and the amount of work that you can. And then your only job is really to increase the amount of money you're getting paid per job. That's all you and I have done over our career. We just started here and then we just sort of like, now we don't do certain jobs under a certain amount of money. Right. And so that's where we got to.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so that's all it's this sort of climb, it's a wall. There's many walls.
And right?
Okay. So our part-time program, let's talk about that. So, one of the things that we feel like it really is designed for there's one of many things actually is one of the things that we feel like it's designed for is it's a good sort of like shoehorn into, is this business right for me? Is this something I should do? Should I do voiceover as a career or a part-time career? Because not everybody is, wanting to do this full time. Maybe some people are like, I have the perfect job and I could devote 20 hours a week to voiceover. I'm going to do that, But what the part-time program allows for people is to give them a chance to try it out, to just try it out. Try a couple of classes, try Foundations or Commercial 1 or Animation 1 and get a sense of like, okay, yeah, this is actually something that I really like doing, like more than I thought. Or, you know what, it's just not for me.
Right.
And that's okay. It's almost like we talked about the reads, like make sure this is something you want to do because you're going to do it a lot.
Yeah. And you're going
Right?
to have to be inspired to do it. So
Yeah. Like you're going to, you know, and it's one thing to take a bunch of part-time courses or whatever. Again, if you ultimately take the full-time program, that's a 6-month commitment where you're here 4 hours a day or online 4 hours a day. And, you know, for 6 months, right? So you really do have to love the feeling of doing it.
Oh, yeah.
And learning about it.
Yeah.
You know,
And that is an ideal way to do it. But I mean, you're right. Not everybody can do the full-time program because they work by day or whatever their situation is. So they have to do it at night. And that still is a solution. It doesn't mean that you won't be successful. It just might take longer, et cetera, right?
I think one of the things we wanted to talk about was that the part-time program is going through a bit of a restructure in that from doing the full-time program so much and getting so specific on what we're teaching in full-time, we're actually bringing that specificity to part-time.
Which is amazing.
Which is so cool.
Yeah, it's very cool.
So we're actually breaking apart our level 2 classes. Like, for example, in animation, we're going to have a level 2. We're going to have 2 level 2 classes. Right. One is going to be in dramatic animation characters and the other one will be in comedic. Yeah. So that you're getting this kind of split of like, okay, I'm going to work on my, you know, dramatic characters, which is like, you know, live action or, you know, preschool or, you know, kids, 4 to 8 years old or like that, you know, or anime, like that kind of sort of dramatic type character or like action based characters where you're doing like Marvel series or like that kind of thing. Or you're going to do the comedic stuff like teenage comedy, adult comedy, super wacky, cartoony. And so we're splitting those so you can get more specific and dive in on those types of genres of performance, you know? And so we're really excited about that. We're going to roll this out in the next month or two. You know, look out for that. And then you want to talk about masterclass?
Yeah. So the masterclass is another addition that we want to have in the part-time program. And it's actually because a lot of people are really wanting that. Folks that have studied with us before, either part-time or full-time, and they want to step up their work, their auditioning, and they want to get to a place where they're either, you know, it's either about booking or it's going to the next level of their business. And the masterclass will allow that kind of specificity, as we talk about, and the kind of very honed in, even, you know, sharpening the pencil and really delving into what people's struggles are, what their walls are, and finding out how to break through to the read that makes them, you know, the key is trying to get to your peak performance. Right. So once you're in your career, are you giving your peak performance read? And how do you get there? And I think the masterclass will really be aimed at that. And it'll be good. It'll be not boot campish, but it'll be a tougher look at what you do.
I think it's for people that have, like, you know, they're in the business and they're not going anywhere. They're for sure in the business. Their agent loves them. They're auditioning all the time. They're booking some stuff, but they're just like, you know, I'm just not booking quite as much as I want to. My booking ratio is a little bit lower than I want it to be. I feel like I'm leaving some work on the table. Like, let me just get in and like get a real like deep dive into like, what are some of the habits I'm doing on my reads? Or because, you know, there's some people that maybe haven't studied in 2 years or haven't, like, you know, there's been times where you and I, like, we haven't worked with Maurice, or I know we're both working with a coach now. But you know, it's always a bit of a shocker when you go back to working with a great coach too, because you're like, oh wow, this, and you really, there's a lot of dials that you can, you know, turn on and off and switch around and
things you forget too that you once knew and you don't apply anymore, or just simply just turning the camera slightly and looking at it slightly differently, and that can really make a difference.
Yeah, it's quite an algorithm.
It is
of performing it. There's like 19 things you kind of have to be thinking of at once, and so that's for sure for the masterclass, and then we're sort of ripping apart Narration as well. Narration's going to get a little more specific on the corporate narration side. So because we just realized that, like, you know, there's a lot of work to be had in corporate narration. So we want to have 2 levels of corporate narration where we're getting into like medical narration and e-learning and employee training and you know all the standard kind of corporate branding videos, and like all of that stuff, which leans on commercial reads a bit, but you know, it's about being able to deliver that stuff and you know, relate to people. You know, the relating to the employee who's listening to that video that's kind of dry and boring, but how can you give it a bit of a pep and sort of something so they're like, wow, you know, it's kind of boring, but I'm okay to listen to you doing it for an hour. Like,
because you're climbing into their world, you know. If you're like doing electric, you got to be an electrician. If you're doing like mechanics, you got to be a mechanic and like that stuff. Yeah.
So we're trying to. It's been cool to learn from full time to inform us for part time, and I think we keep kind of going back and forth because our full time came out of our part time program, so now we're diving back into part time to make that you know more exciting. We're also getting more into our business classes, because we're feeling like, you know, the business side is so important with, you know, sound, your ability to produce sound and engineering. So we're breaking that apart. The branding and marketing side, you know, a lot of that stuff too, just to, you know, make sure that people understand the importance of the business side. You know, like, we're in the business of voiceover.
Yeah,
and it is, and you're more than ever your own entrepreneur.
More than ever, more than
your own space, your own studio, your own marketing, your own like all of that is so key. And I think people kind of leave that to the side a bit, and they don't want to get into the business of it,
or they don't. Yeah, because they don't like it or they're not familiar with it. And I think part of
value it.
I mean, I think part of the way we look at Business of Voiceover is to reframe that and not have you go, oh, I got to do the business side. It's, you know, it's related to who you are as an artist. And I think that's the key.
It can be fun too. It can be fun to learn all these tools where you're like, oh, I didn't realize that was a thing. And then you're like, you're getting through walls that you didn't realize were there, because you're like, oh, that's a business adjustment.
Yeah.
Wow. I get it. That's got nothing to do with my read. That's got to do with how I conduct myself in a business manner.
Yeah.
And how my marketing,
like how your website looks or whatever it is, right? Your demos.
How I communicate to someone, how I communicate to an agent, how I communicate to a client in an email, how I look for work. Like all of that stuff can, all of a sudden you're like, wow, I'm getting 20% more work since learning more about the business. That's weird. I'm doing the same read. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, you want to go to the party that you want to be at, but you also want to be appropriately dressed. So it's like, you know, and that's all part of the accoutrement in your business and how your website looks and what you're presenting in your demos, and that all has to be part of like what you want to say, not just what other people think you should say.
And whatever tier you're in the business, whether you're doing more online platform work or with an agent, either, you know, portion of that world expects you to be pro, because that's the bar that's been set.
Oh yeah.
Right. In the online world, people are very professional in the online world on those platforms. They're delivering, you know, material turnarounds fast, their language they use in the emails, and how they connect with clients. And then with agents, same thing, you know, like they're expecting a certain bar of how you present yourself, how you talk to them, they may want to zoom in with you for a meeting before you sign with them, or, you know, and you got to be, you know, we've heard stories about agents telling us about how people kind of don't know how to really present themselves to, and sort of, you know, talk to an agent about themselves or their career or their desires or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, so that they can present themselves in a really successful way and confident way. So the agent goes, oh, this person's ready to pop.
Yeah.
Like,
your agent's
ready. This person is ready. Like, rather than like, oh, I kind of had to pull all these answers out of them and they didn't feel like stuff like that. Just knowing those things, because, you know, you get the right agent and all of a sudden it's like, it can, in 6 months, you can be plugged. You were playing AAA ball.
Yeah.
For now
you're in the pros. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's little things like that can make a huge difference. So you got to respect the business side of it. And so we've amped that up as well. Kids and teens as well. We're changing kids and teens to reflect our age gaps. So our age breaks. So we have 8 to 12-year-olds.
Yeah.
And then we have the 13 to 17-year-old. So now specific Ongoing classes will be provided for 8 to 12-year-olds and 13 to 17-year-olds.
Because maturity is different, and
we're going to have different levels for that. And so one of the things we want to talk about is the kids camps.
Yeah.
Coming in the summer. Now, you and I are both parents. We have children, and we're scrambling to, like, I'm sure you've been going through this.
Oh, yeah.
Figure out the camps where,
for sure,
your kids are going to go. Same for me. It's like, where do we put our children? So we have camps for 2 different age groups in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
And so starting on July 11th for 8 to 12-year-olds, we have a week-long camp. This is from 9 to 4. And it's going to cover everything from animation to commercial to improv to acting. There's going to be games, and it's going to be amazing. It's going to be at the studio here, and it's from 9 to 4. And so, I mean, again, my wife and I are scrambling, trying to find those day-long camps where they can drop.
Lots of people
drop
are.
our kid off to, and so this is going to be an amazing thing for it. And then on July 18th is for the 13 to 17-year-olds.
Yeah, the older
that's
group.
the older sort of group.
Yeah.
So depending on what age your child is, if they're 8 to 12, they'd start on July 11th, and then if not, they would go July 18th for the week. If they're 13 to 17.
And then in August, we have an August
15th is the second offering for the 8 to 12-year-olds, and then August 22nd is the second offering for the 13 to 17-year-olds. So I would definitely recommend if your child is shown an interest in doing voices or loves animation and games and improv and acting, and it's just we're going to use all of the space here that we're going to be recording. We're going to probably be dubbing to picture and doing all of this really cool stuff that we have a great curriculum for.
And our instructors are really they're specifically geared for to kids, and they're excellent with kids. And
exactly.
And in terms of the space, we have a multi-space, which is an open room where they do improv games and acting, and then we have the studio itself where everybody gets an individual mic, so they get you get the kind of playful element plus the professional element. And it's an intro to a creative profession. If they like it, they can continue, and if they don't, they had a good week.
And it's one of those things that if they do want to continue, I think it's a viable business for a kid or a teen to do, because it's not like on camera where they're being exposed and potentially becoming famous, and which changes. It's sort of a bit of a mind bender for kids to kind of wrap their head around, like, I'm kind of famous now, or I'm in these shows and my friends recognize me. But in voice, that doesn't exist, because it's just your voice. And there isn't this sort of fame factor.
Right.
So they just kind of go to the studio, they do their lines, and they do their in the show or the commercial thing or whatever it is, their video game. And they do it and they leave and they're like, yeah, I worked and I was expressive and I had fun and it was creative. I worked with fun people. I'm in this cool studio. And then they leave and they're like, yeah. And the money's very good too for them. And parents put this money away for college and you and I have worked with kids quite a bit in our careers, and it's a really great avenue that I think we're probably both our kids at some point will be doing it or get involved. I can't remember if
Ford's done a commercial, but
So I think it's one of those things where it's a very safe environment for them to get into and not feel like they're going to get into some kind of situation where they're I got to move them to LA now because they're famous and we're going to go live at the apartments. You hear these stories and not that there's anything wrong with that, but if you're just wanting sort of a situation for them to get involved in a creative outlet.
That's the key.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
So those are the major pivots for part-time. Look out for the changes on the website. And it's been so fun to be back in with Noel and Jay.
Yeah.
For a little OTM podcast with Harry and Mark and Baron. We got Baron and Mark, our interns.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks to you guys for being amazing. And a big thanks
excellent.
to Harry for
huge thanks to
always
Harry,
being the wizard and running the show.